I was getting shit tons of protein in, just throwing powders in my face as a kid, and I was sleeping like a fucking degenerate zoo animal, and so I didn't have to supplement for that. But a lot of people at our age will look at supplements like protein powder, like pre-work, and so big, oh, this is the thing that's going to move the needle because it's marketed as such. It's like, well, hold on, where are you at? Right. So I'm curious because we know the demographic of the listener. If you were to look at supplements, and I still want to look at them through the lens of gaining muscle, getting stronger, but I want your take on, the essential supplements that people should be taking to grow muscle as they, as their life changes. I don't want to say get older, but as their life changes.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting question, especially in the way that you worded it. Cause I think you can go, I'd say two different routes with this, like supplementation in terms of like, I guess macronutrients or like creatine protein, I guess is one category for me, which I think are probably going to be the most widely used. And I think they can make a large difference. But then more so when I think like supplementation, I think like micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, right? And that's kind of where my mind goes with this. I think that there's probably three things that anyone walking this earth that cares about feeling good and maintaining good sleep, recovery, hormone profile that you should be taking. That's vitamin D, zinc, and magnesium. I think they're probably top of the list for me. There's going to be, different cases like with different people depending on, any deficiencies that you might have or like your specific biology or physiology. But I think those are probably some of the most important in my mind in terms of like, if we're talking about building muscle, we're talking about performance in the gym, that's going to help regulate sleep. That's going to help regulate hormone production. I think they're relatively cheap. They're accessible. They're something that most people probably aren't getting. Maybe they're getting it from their diet, but maybe that's like I'm pretty involved in my nutrition and I have been for a while. I don't really know things that contain magnesium and zinc. I don't know, mushrooms and red meat. Like I think like outside of that, like, vitamin D, dairy, maybe red meat. I don't fucking know. But like the fact that I don't know those things because I've been supplementing with it for so long, I find those to be the most beneficial in terms of just normalizing how you feel on a day-to-day basis and then normalizing like the sleep waking cycle. So I think that's top for me in terms of just like things that everyone should be taking. If you're not taking those things, like the rest of what you're getting hopefully is coming from your diet, but supplementing with those things, because like I eat a lot of dairy in my diet. I eat a lot of vitamin D. Like I hit my daily requirement through food, but every time I get blood labs, I'm still vitamin D deficient. So like I ordered 10,000 IU vitamin D tabs now, and that's what I take. So those are my top three right there. Vitamin D with K2 for absorption, then magnesium and zinc.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough. Because I'm trying to make I think fish oil would have to be on mine.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that's high up there. I put that, so like omega-3s, I put that in the creatine protein, like those three
Okay.
in terms of like, things that, again, they're more macronutrient type things. Like creatine's not a macronutrient, but you're going to get it from red meat consumption in your diet. Some people don't eat red meat. Some people don't eat it often. And there is, maybe indication for some people to not eat red meat at all. So I think like protein, creatine, omega-3s, that's kind of that other category for me.
Okay. So you're going like, if I had to go minerals, vitamins and minerals was like one category. So that's where you had zinc, magnesium, and D.
Yep.
Yeah, vitamin D is a tough one to get away from, especially living inside the way that I do.
Yeah.
So vitamin D would be a tough one to beat. I'm going to go vitamin C for me has been big. One of the things that I see really often, and I see it make a pronounced change, and you got to be careful with vitamin C at higher dosages because vitamin C is a really potent antioxidant.
Mhm.
And in understanding the muscle building process, you need to understand the role that oxidative stress plays in that process. And blunting oxidative stress could potentially blunt the adaptation response. Now, if you look at the research on vitamin C and doing just that, and blunting these adaptations, usually the adaptations that are more clinically pronounced in the blunting effect of higher dose vitamin C are usually those outcomes that are more to do with endurance. So there's some research that indicates that high dose vitamin C might be counterintuitive for someone who has endurance training goals. But by that mechanism, now you can imagine that oxidative stress be far more present in endurance activities, right? Look how ultra marathon runners age. What you're seeing in the physical degradation of someone who goes through repetitive bouts of that type of stress is the manifestation of high amounts of just unrelenting oxidative stress. But when it comes to hypertrophy, there's still some suggestion that higher dose vitamin C, and true of antioxidants across the board. Like I remember seeing a pre-workout that was like laden with antioxidants. I'm like, I don't know if that's really what you want to do before you work out. Now, you don't want to fan the flame of oxidative stress and having a highly inflammatory diet. Like there's a point where too much oxidative stress becomes counterintuitive, right? And like omega sixes and certain sources of red meat and drinking fucking canola oil may be setting yourself up for a bit of a shitstorm, quite literally a bit of a shitstorm.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
when you're looking when you're looking at antioxidants, I think understanding the average meathead diet. This is someone who hasn't eaten a fruit and vegetable since they moved out of their parents' house. I pay rent now, so I don't have to fucking listen to you, mom. Uh, that's one where I think at moderate doses you start to see some pretty profound immune responses.
mhm.
It's funny to go and be around other cultures and travel and hear some of like the mom science get sort of passed down, like the medical lore in different cultures. And one that has been fairly unanimous across the board wherever I travel is vitamin C. And it's one that I notice when I travel, I keep a moderate to high dose, usually around 1,000 milligrams a day. I've pushed higher before, but have started to theorize that higher than 1,000 milligrams, and the research kind of supports this, is where we might be running into some blunting effects of that oxidative stress on the actual pathways that we're looking to leverage to gain muscle and build strength. So vitamin C for me is one, vitamin D is another. Now a mineral, I mean magnesium is a tough one to get away from. Everyone by this point in their life, if you listen to podcasts about nutrition, have probably heard that, I don't know, there's one person who probably wrote an article and counted up the number of enzymatic processes that
Right.
magnesium catalyzes, and there's literally every website on the planet will be like, oh, magnesium is responsible for anywhere between 3 to 400 enzymatic processes, which is like, yeah, it's non-trivial. Now the thing with magnesium that I will caveat is the sources, because when we look at supplementation, I think one of the issues that you're going to run into is digestibility and bioavailability, right? One thing that you set off the jump with vitamin D was K2 for absorption. Like that's a massive indicator. I remember getting vitamin D tabs as a kid. I might as well have just been, you know,
Right.
swallowing pennies or dimes or nickels, because probably get as much out of that as I did out of the tabs themselves for a number of reasons. The source of the the vitamin itself, the form of it, but also the fact that it doesn't have sort of these coenzymes, which brings me back to vitamin C and an interesting reaction that a lot of people aren't aware of. Um, and that's the role of vitamin C in collagen formation, which is where I think it plays a huge role. If you are consuming a what would be considered in the medical community a high amount of protein, you need vitamin C to help take that protein and help use that protein to form collagen, right? So, like the spoken protein, without fucking making this a commercial, we put vitamin C in the protein powder. Now, it doesn't taste like fucking oranges or Flintstone vitamins or anything like that. But with the thought being that, okay, there are going to be people out there who underconsume vitamin C to the point where they're not able to effectively sort of potentiate that protein into its transformation and into collagen tissue in your body. So that's something where I think uh, you open up a can of worms when you're looking at things under a microscope, like what supplements should you take? It's like, well, there's kind of a battery of different interactions of these things that need to be factored in. So vitamin C, vitamin D, magnesium. Now, my point about magnesium is the digestibility of the sourcing and the bioavailability of the sourcing of the courses of over the course of the last couple of years. I would say 10 to 15 years, there have been somewhat of an explosion of different forms of magnesium that are available, right? So malate versus citrate versus threonate versus biglycinate, there's orotate, all of these different things. What I think is important is one, digestibility, like staying away from the harder to digest forms of everything. Like if you've ever taken, I was diagnosed anemic at a pretty young age, and I used to have to take iron. I want to say iron citrate, or sorry, ferrous sulfate, ferrous sulfate. Holy shit! If you want to turn your stomach into that of a hibernating bear, take 2 tabs of ferrous sulfate. But then there's ferrous gluconate, right? So it's like some people are like, oh, iron's iron. It's like, not if you can't eat the rest of the day, not if you're going to cancel your calls and just sit on the porcelain throne forever. So what I think is important with magnesium is tending to magnesium sources that do 2 things: cross the blood-brain barrier and also are easy on digestion. I think magnesium, for all of its peripheral processes that we talk about, I think that's more central, talking peripheral and central in the nervous system sense, is where you're going to set to gain a lot of the benefit. And this is where we start to see magnesium in sleep products and things like that. So that's when you look at magnesium under that category, you want to be very mindful of the source that you're getting. Threonate, biglycinate, orotate, those are 3 that tend to achieve both of those things really well, that digest really well and have some profound effects neurologically in the repair systems there. So those are my 3. So honorable mention to vitamin C with a caveat. Now, in the protein, more macronutrient fat, there's fish oils are tough because, so again, sourcing, right? Right? Like I'm an advocate. The research has been, fairly conclusive on fish oils for a while. Now, there's an emerging product that's a derivative of a fish oil called pro-resolving mediators. Pro-resolving mediators are neat because it's essentially downstream what causes or what is responsible for the anti-inflammatory effects of fish oil itself.